Destruction Warlock. My guess for this matchup, with basically the strategies these teams need to use, is Raikou, Swapsy, Chaz. They take no risks. They just play in the middle of the map, do damage, and eventually in Dampening push through the healing Zuniaki really has. For Cassidy and Facile, they're going to have to play relatively safe. If they stay in the open for too long, then they get punished. And as a result, I feel like my Dampening prediction is going to be 62%.
Let's see if it's... Are we doing Prices Right rules?
No.
I haven't made a prediction yet. I'll say 47%.
47%. I got 62%.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's see if they decide to start the fight here. Raikou already has the Jade statue on him. The mage is likely the target, as you want to stop Greater Pyroblast. That's the biggest threat. Swapsy fears the Hunter, though. He's not really able to help Cassidy. 2 Chaos Bolts already from Swapsy. Chaz in a position as if he wants to cross center field, maybe for a Paralyze. He could do Paralyze Leg Sweep onto Zuniaki for crowd control, but he doesn't really need to risk it if he doesn't want to. Stun on Zuniaki with Shadow Fury. Swapsy can't get in position, though, to fear. They leg sweep Cassidy. They ring a piece the Ring of Peace. Seems a little bit unnecessary as a caster cleave, but Vitality Conduit onto Cassidy is going to easily heal him through the damage. And Zuniaki should be able to pick up Facile. Swapsy going to use that Demonic Gateway while his healer is in a freezing trap. And is he running the Imp? He is. I see the Imp on the Gateway, I think, shooting little fireballs. He's so tiny, it's hard to keep track of. Trying to find the Imp in the battlefield. I don't see a Fell Hunter, so I would imagine he's running Imp. Maybe he got unlucky with that Entangling Roost strategy Zico is talking about.
Yeah. Something really interesting in this matchup is Raikou. This is something you don't normally see very often, but I think it makes a lot of sense given the circumstances. Raikou is actually going to be playing Ice Form, which is an honor talent you don't normally see, but essentially what it is it replaces your Icy Veins, is a 1-minute cooldown, and increases your Frostbolt damage while it's active for 30 seconds, or by 30%, and also grants you immunity to stun. So in Dampening, I feel like this is a great decision, because if you're in trouble as a Frost Mage, normally you get taken down in stuns, but if you use that Ice Form, you're actually immune to stuns and knockbacks for 12 seconds, and you also have huge Frostbolt damage. If you're left alone and use Ice Form, you can get massive Frostbolts off, and I think that's what Raiku's going to be looking to go for in this game. I think it's a great talent choice.
Yeah, he's actually running the Lonely Winter as well. So Raikou is no path, but he has massive damage on his Flurry and his Frostbolt. So whenever he gets a Flurry combo right there, he can do big damage with that Ice Form. It's an interesting build to see, and I think one interesting thing about the Frost Mages is that you can either choose all your talents and have them aggressive, or you can make all your gear aggressive and then have defensive talents. And Frost Mage probably won't die that easy just because you have 2 ice blocks, you have a lot of defense on that Frost Mage.
And you know what's really interesting about it, I just want to call it out one more time, is he's actually playing Vision of Perfection as well. So the Ice Form does get benefited by Vision of Perfection, so the uptime could be close to 50% on Ice Form in this matchup. So interesting decision. Those Frostbolts are going to hit exceptionally hard. The only problem is you give up a lot of damage. So it's an interesting, I wouldn't say glass cannon, but basically a cannon build here for Raikou. It's going to make his Frostbolt and Flurries hit really hard, but his instant damage is definitely going to be limited.
Double Infernal, double leg sweep while Zuniaki was polymorphed. That's going to cost Cassidy's Gladiator's Medallion. This was prior to the Dark Soul Swapsy, so Cassidy needs to be ready for that moment. He's charging back into midfield, going after Swapsy. Facile and Cassidy have just been bouncing between whoever's standing closer to Zuniaki. Right now they're split a little bit, and Raikou is dragging Facile out into midfield. Zuniaki refuses to leave the pillar. Dark Soul gets popped. Double Mortal Coil. Doesn't look like it landed double. Cassidy instantly dispelling that havoc. Well timed. Disrupting a lot of Swapsy's damage. Swapsy goes for a Fear to bait a kick and then Chaos Bolt. He doesn't fall for the bait. Instantly Skull Bashing once dispelled out of the Fear. Another Chaos Bolt attempt. Facile feigned deaths to interrupt its cast. And it looks like they've dealt with the Dark Soul expertly. That was supposed to be the scariest point in the game, but the way that they navigated it, it made it look easy.
Yeah, and Zuni actually has a bit of a mana lead, and they do secure a full trap here onto Chaz. No Dispel Swapsy in a stun. No follow-up CC though, so Chaz should be able to pick Swapsy up in this situation. Full leg sweep now on Cassidy. No way out of that one, but Vitality Conduit coming out of Zuniaki. Facile though, taking a little bit of damage from that. gonna get topped off as well. And now you have a kind of a cleave strategy here. Facile actually taking a couple of steps to the side there to isolate his target for that dress. Now they force out the life cocoon and they're going for Raikou, but Raikou activating that stone, that ice form. And the good thing about ice form in this matchup is that because there's no priest, there's nobody who can purge Raikou, so when they do that swap, it makes him immune to stuns, and there's nobody who can actually dispel it. So, so far, Raikou getting a lot of value from that build.
Well, let's see. Raikou, his damage has been significant so far. When they leave him alone, those Frostbolts are really, really scary that he's able to get off, and it's an interesting strategy. I mean, right now, Chaz, his mana isn't doing great. This kind of split strategy coming in from Facile and Cassidy is taxing his mana. I mean, we're just in Dampening, and Chaz is already 50% mana. At some point, he's likely going to have to go for a drink. For nLite, it's just all about survive as long as we can. Eventually, in Dampening, try to push through with your big offensive burst cooldowns, but that can be a dangerous game to play. Chaz rolling in, actually getting caught into an intimidation stun.
Ooh.
Swapsy doing a great job standing on top of him and actually eating that freezing trap. Really good positioning there by Swapsy.
Oh, Cassidy getting set up on. Glidier's Medallion trades again prior to the Dark Soul along with the Life Cocoon. So Swapsy has a big opening here to try and net a kill onto Cassidy if they can coordinate the crowd control. Cassidy instantly dispels the Havoc again, only finding one Mortal Coil. Swapsy can't freely cast. He gets bashed now on it. Unfortunately, it's before the Dark Soul, so, I mean, Swapsy could set up for some big damage here. He fears Cassidy, pulls the trigger. Dark Soul, Chaos Bolt, Facile, Lingering Psychic Shells, disengages, but 2 Chaos Bolts are going to land. Zuniaki powers through it. Shadow Fury not going to be enough disruption. Swapsy now fearing Cassidy as he pushes across the map towards Chaz to try and stop his drink. Zuniaki rolls up to try and prevent it with the Ring of Peace. He did get, I believe, a tiny bit of mana. And if nLite look to win on mana, they definitely need to stop drinks in the future. Huge damage onto both Swapsy and Raikou at the moment. nLite, I mean, they're looking solid. I feel like Mage Warlock has been a composition that's had their number the entirety of this year, really. So they've adapted the Mistweaver instead of the Discipline Priest to their team to try and get these long matches in their favor. And right now it's looking decent.
Yeah, and they do force out a Life Cocoon here on the side of nLite. They still have that mana lead, and now they're pulling the trigger here onto Cassidy. Big damage, but Zuniaki is just going to respect that Frozen Orb and use that Life Cocoon full counterspell secured by Raikou. And Facile is just chilling at the pillar here and making sure that he doesn't drop too low during that time. And now he's going to go back out. Now you can see nLite here looking to land crowd control. They're going for Raikou right now, just trying to get some damage there. And you can see soon Facile is going to try to go over onto Chaz with his hook and trap him. And Chaz is going to try to port behind the pillar to avoid that. Instead, Facile is actually going to charge in over to Swapsy. So they're not even going for the traps right now. They're just trying to get a target low and then go for the trap potentially, or just tax Chaz's mana. Chaz now trying to sit down for a drink, but he gets intim stunned. Do they have any follow-up? It doesn't look like it, and Chaz should be able to recover Swapsy here with that Life Cocoon.
Yep, and here we are, 17% dampening, cooldown still available for both of these teams. Facile getting a little bit low right now. Let's see if Swapsy and Raikou have the burst damage before he gets topped off. Unfortunately, they do not. And it's actually Zuniaki who is behind on mana at this point, so I think if at any moment in the game, either one of these Mistweaver monks can sneak away and try to get a drink, that could potentially be the game going in their favor. Good setup here. Cassidy getting low, as well as Facile. That was a beautiful leg sweep. Chaz rolling into the midfield, getting the double leg sweep, and setting his team up for some good burst damage in the matchup. Zuniaki still, his mana is just not doing hot right now. Now actually positioning. I think he's going to try to get out of combat and go for a drink. Let's see if he's going to be able to do it.
All right. Game is now favored to Method Black. Dark Soul is rolling. They're scared, but they need to keep pushing if they want to find a win. This Ice Form build from Raikou, is it going to actually work out? It's getting decent pressure right now with its activation. Raikou blinks in to try and find a Polymorph. Not landing it. Now onto Facile. Life Cocoon onto Swapsy. I feel like that was more or less just a mana management Life Cocoon. Not really one that was required. Double Shadow Fury on the Frozen Orb. They're pinned down in that. Huge pressure from Swapsy. They're going to Vitality Conduit, and they're going to Life Cocoon as well. A bit of an overlap there from Zuniaki. Now he won't have one of those to cycle for at least 45 seconds. His mana is not looking good. It could tax the rest of his mana over this next coming couple of minutes. And at that point, what do? You're just a Mistweaver with 0 mana, healing through a Destro Lock and a Frost Mage. I don't think it's going to be too good. Chaz rolls up into center field, lands a double stun onto both Facile and Cassidy, setting up Raikou for big flurry damage on that ice form once again. But not finding the kill just yet. Survival Instinct's going to activate for Cassidy as they're using their defensive cooldowns for efficiency rather than just preventing deaths. Cassidy tries to go for a YOLO kill, jumping onto Raikou, interrupting Frost, and activating the Drestigath. Not going to find the kill, though. Chaz denies it with his Life Cocoon.
Yeah, I don't think things are looking too good right now for nLite. They're not winning on mana, and they're not landing the CCs that they need. You know, Swapsy still has Unending Resolve. They pretty much have everything, and they're getting into that Wizard chokehold. You can see now Facile gonna be in a little bit of trouble, but Zuniaki with a beautiful preemptive Life Cocoon there. Gonna keep Facile on full HP, and Raikou actually taking a decent amount of damage here. No Life Cocoon on Chaz for a little bit. Let's see if they can get some pressure, but without actually CCing Chaz, I don't see it happening. Chaz now finally in a full trap here. This is a moment for nLite to actually get some cooldowns. You can see Facile activating Aspect of the Eagle, Raikou spamming out the polymorphs. There it is, Unending Resolve coming out. Zuniaki with a beautiful Ring of Peace there as well on Chaz, buying them a few extra seconds, and that is going to net them the Unending Resolve. The question, Manruki, was it too little too late?
I mean, that is a good question. Swapsy is getting low. We'll have to see if Facile and Cassidy can find that burst damage. So far, it's looking good here for Method Black. Even on mana are both Mistweaver monks at this point. Facile actually getting low, forced to run away, and that's never a great sign. I mean, if you're the Jungle Cleave, whenever you run away and retreat behind the pillar and allow Raikou, Swapsy, Chaz to recover, it's not the greatest spot to be in. Raikou trying to just keep Facile at the pillar, putting out good Frost Bolts. He's got both Ice Blocks as well. You know, Cold Snap and Ice Form available. He's going to be a difficult target to take down. Swapsy actually moving forward. Chaz gets caught into a stun. Big burst damage on Raikou. He actually almost just dies outright. Wow. Really scary situation there. That was almost a complete solo kill by Cassidy. Raikou does manage to hold on, and now they're reversing the pressure here onto Facile.
All right, let's see if they can finish it here. Cassidy stuns Swapsy, moves over towards Raikou to try and disrupt both of the spellcasters. Zuniaki holds on to dear life as both sides are out of mana. Perhaps a cross kill here in game number 1. It's coming down to the wire in terms of resources. Will either monk be able to sneak in a drink deep into Dampening, or will they just have to work with nothing? Facile gets stunned up and blasted. Cassidy saves him by stunning Raikou. Swapsy is now taking quite a beating. Life Cocoon from Chaz stabilizes. Facile disengages back, trying to get back out of line of sight, but the damage has already been secured. I mean, Raikou is absolutely letting it rip. 3 polys onto Zuni into a full fear. That fear could be devastating. Zuni not getting feared just yet. Swapsy not in position. Raikou gets forced back. Chaz was able to drink during that push. He got quite a lot of mana, but it could trade for an Ice Block, maybe just for Swapsy's life. Double Mortal Coil, healing Swapsy back up, stalling the damage. That drink is single-handedly going to keep Method Black in this game.
They need to just keep pushing now on Swapsy. If they ever have to leave the middle, it's the lights out for nLite. Let's see if they can stay out. They need to try to get pressure on Swapsy right now. No Life Cocoon on Chaz, no Unending Resolve for a couple of seconds. There is a small window here of opportunity. Let's see if they can get it done. They're pushing in. Zuniaki in a full fear here. Swapsy looking to reverse the pressure. Infernal's called out. Raikou with a nice orb here, keeping them pinned in the middle. Swapsy just dragging them out, trying to kite away from Zuniaki, but he gets knocked back in. No gateway is going to be activated here for Swapsy, but instead he's going to Dark Soul Cataclysm. Big damage here at 49% dampening. Faciles could just fall down. No cooldowns left for him here. Retreating back to the pillar with that lingering Psychic Shell, and he is going to survive, but for how long?
Full
We'll definitely have to wait and see. There's the Polymorph on Zuniaki. Cassidy immediately activating his defensive cooldown in order to survive. That Survival Instincts. Life Cocoon now lands on Cassidy. Raikou might get bursted down again, and I mean, if we look at mana, both Mistweaver monks are completely tapped at this point. Swapsy, he has the Unending Resolve rotating back up. We're at 52% dampening. Big burst damage coming in from Cassidy. Swapsy could be in some trouble. There it is. Once again, the Unending Resolve. Chaz has some catch up to do here. He does manage to find some big heals that will keep him in the fight, but Raikou and Swapsy, they need to find some counter pressure at this point, because this isn't looking too bad for nLite. If Cassidy can survive this, got the pre-survival instincts on the leg sweep. Beautifully done. Now Swapsy could be the one that falls, and he does. nLite managing to potentially get this game number 1. If Cassidy can survive, I don't expect Raikou and Chaz to be able to come back in this one, but very impressive performance here. 55% dampening. Enlight manages to secure the kill onto Swapsy.
Well, we pretty much, I feel like, at least I did, kind of count out the jungle, especially at this point in the tournament. It's been very difficult for him. Well, what allowed them to get to this late part of dampening and ultimately find the win, Zico?
Just good defense. I think the fact that they realized we're just going to play for the dampening win condition here is what allows them to actually get there. Because if you start trying to play to win, the way we call it play to win, where essentially you're pushing in all the time, you're trying to get crowd control as much as possible, and you're trying to set up a 100-0 scenario. The problem is when you're doing that is that you give up your positioning, you risk getting cross crowd controlled or having your pressure kind of reversed on top of you, similar to what we saw Wildcard able to do. And I feel like not risking it and going for those traps and just staying back, having Facile attack the mage, having Cassidy attack the warlock, and then having them both swap around, and occasionally, if you can, try to look for a trap, but don't try to force it. I think that's what allows them to live for such a long period of time, and then when dampening is this high, that's when they can find a kill.
Yeah, so it's kind of almost like just go through the motions. Make sure you don't do anything stupid until you get to dampening.
Make sure you don't do
anything. Try not to do anything. Then the second you get to dampening, when you can potentially find that win, that's when you start pulling out all the stops. It's definitely not what we typically see from a jungle, right? I think it's a composition that we expect to go fast, but when you're in this current meta and you need to try to shake things up, you can see a skilled jungle trying to find an alternate way to find that victory, and they're going to find the first one in this series as well. Now, my main question after watching that is, do you think Method Black is going to try to actually come up with a different answer, Supatis?
I mean, they could do Fire Mage instead of Frost Mage. I feel like Raikou's build was like trying to make Frostbolt into Greater Pyro, but it's just not Greater Pyro. Like, he's just putting everything into making Frostbolt hit hard, and it just doesn't hit hard. So Greater Pyro would have been a bigger threat, but they could play the same comp method, or the same comp Wildcard did. That they have Enhancement Warrior, they have Ellie Warrior. Honestly, after watching that game, if the Mistweaver jungle can play it out that long, I don't know anymore. Before I would have been like, yeah, Mage Lock's just gonna win. It's gonna be easy win. But now I'm watching that. I'm not sold that Mage Lock wins every single time. I think nLite had to beat AWC to get here, and AWC was running Mage Warlock a lot as well. So they're only getting better, really, in the matchup against Mage Warlock. Yeah. And it might be coming to a point where the Mage Warlocks have to make a change.
Which feels kind of good. I mean, it's just one of those things where every now and then when you actually do see somebody shake up the meta, it's hard not to cheer for them and just actually see different things happen. I mean, you look at Mage Warlock, it's looked absurdly broken. I mean, you look at Warlock, and this is coming from me, who typically had been playing Warlock a lot in the past. I mean, it was an undying machine that just shot out giant meatballs that were able to take you down. It was very tough to go toe-to-toe with it, and to see a jungle of all things able to do it, I'm definitely excited to see what the rest of the series does have in store. But let's talk about Raikou's build just a little bit more, because Vemruki, I know the second that you did see some of those choices, you're like, all right, this is interesting. Did you like it now that you did see it? Because, I mean, Sid's already talking about switching to Fire Mage, potentially.
Well, I mean, it's pretty good if you can get off Frostbolts, but I think what ended up happening in the match is when they went to a split strategy, all of a sudden Raikou, he wasn't able to get off as much damage as you would see in like a standard Frost Mage build. I also think that although Ice Form is up quite often and, it can give you those big Frostbolts, Icy Veins is one of the best offensive cooldowns in the entire game. So giving up that for, big Frostbolts a little bit more often in the game, I just feel like it's a big trade-off. Is it worth it? It didn't look super great in that matchup. I mean, there's got to be a reason why he's playing it, but it's like you kind of mentioned. It seemed like at that point you're trying to make Frost into Fire with just greater Frostbolt, essentially. But, I mean, it didn't seem like it packed the same punch as, a Fire Mage spamming greater Power Blast and having a massive undispellable combustion that they'd be able to really work with in that matchup. So I'd be curious to see if he runs it again. I didn't love it because it just feels so all in on just Frostbolts. But Yeah, I mean, if you get the Frostbolts off, it's going to be rewarding. If they stop you, you're not going to do anything, which is why I think it was so difficult for them to actually secure a kill that late in the game.
Zico, hook point going to be the map. How do you feel about going to closer quarters?
This means Method Black are going Rogue Mage Pally.
I was thinking Frost DK.
Yeah, they might go
You
Cleave.
just killed a Mistweaver. Because Zuni locked in Mistweaver. You just play Frost DK Cleave and run at the Mistweaver. They all stack up and they all die.
Oh, maybe. There's more than one. There's more than one way to skin a cat. Isn't that what they say?
Sure.
Yeah,
I think that is a saying.
yeah,
Yeah, and we have a Feral Druid here.
yeah. There are a bunch of things like that. They've been adapted over time. Like now it's feeding a fed horse, I believe, and feed a bird.
Eating a fed horse, yeah.
Yeah, and then what's the other one? Feeding 2 birds with 1 scone. I like that. That one's one of my favorite ones. Oh, look.
No, that one's good.
Supatis was right. There we go. It is going to be the Frost Death Knight coming in here. And Sid, you were the one who talked about it, so just shed a little bit more light on why you think the Cleave is going to be able to just zug onto the Monk.
So monks live by moving away from things that hit them. Frost Death Knights make their target not move. So if your way to live is removed, you die. Frost DK is so good into Mistweaver, especially with melee cleave. Not so much spellcaster Mistweaver, because Frost Death Knight also needs at least one other target standing next to who they want to kill for Chill Streak to matter, which is all of their damage. So Chill Streak, you throw a snowball, it hits Zuni, it bounces to someone next to Zuni, it bounces back, and it just keeps doing this until somebody dies. So this situation sets you up for that. You can have... I would have liked Shaman Healer, though, instead of Chaz Mistweaver. I actually am maybe a bit worried that Chaz dies, because if they do a healer race to not stack, which they should, then Chaz might actually die in the race. I think Shaman would have been safer. You can just run as Ghost Wolf on top of the Monk and generally be fine. And if you're not, I mean, you still have Darkness, and the other team will just get destroyed while you heal with Pack Spirit. So I think this could backfire on Chaz, depending on how Enlight want to play it with the Monk instead of the Shaman pick. But Frost Death Knight is still going to be scary.
All right. I'm definitely excited for this one. I mean, already we're seeing something in the series that is exciting out of the first game. I think I personally expected a 3-0 to potentially happen here in favor of Method Black. They've not only been a Tyrant team so far in the EU, not only this year, but in years past as well, but they're going up against a composition that we hadn't expected much from, and now all of the sudden in this second weekend, it's starting to just creep in here. It's starting to make teams sweat just a little bit more. But I will ask right now, I mean, is the only way that Enlight finds pressure in late dampening, like in the last game, even when they are faced up against this Cleave, Zico?
I mean, no. It's like basically what it comes down to. As long as Method Black aren't overlapping their cooldowns and they're responding appropriately to each setup, they should be fine. But if they ever overlap, for example, Raiku's Trinket and Chaz's Life Cocoon, all of a sudden, Raikou can get 100 0'd immediately in one of those setups. So as long as they play basically the way we saw kind of wild card play against their jungle, where you didn't really see any overlaps defensively and they just kept playing to their win condition, then it's really, really hard to secure a kill for Enlight or the jungle in general.
Yeah, and also, I will say, when you do look at just where we are in the tournament as well, these teams are playing to get that really good spot on the top side of the bracket. If you do lose here, you drop down to the lower side of the bracket. This isn't an elimination series. After this, though, for the rest of the day, just so you do know what we're going to be getting into for the rest of our beautiful, it's Friday, right? Beautiful Friday. We'll see. Nice. Well, I never know what day it is anymore. I'll be honest. Every time Tuesday rolls around, I'm like, okay, I know where we are for a brief second, and then I open my chest. I'm like, man, I wish I didn't know where I was. But ultimately, we are going to see 2 more matchups after this one. Those are going to be elimination series, and after those elimination series, we'll have our top 4 in the EU. Tomorrow, we're going to be finding our top 4 in the NA, and then after that, we get to Championship Sunday, where we find a champion from each region. Let's see who's going to be dropping down to the lower side of the bracket. Enlight leads by 1 as we jump in on Hook Point.
I think this is going to be a much quicker game than the last one that we did see. I think both of these Mistweaver monks are vulnerable to an all-in assault, and we'll have to see. I mean, for Enlight, are they going to go after Raikou, a little bit more conservative in strategy, or just go after Chaz? Here it is, swaps in Raikou immediately. They're going to be going after Facile, it looks like. Actually potentially chasing after Zuniaki as well. Nice reversal of the trap from Raikou as they try to stay on target. Facile, though, caught into a trap. Not really going to be able to assist Zuniaki too much just yet.
All right, let's see if Zuniaki can deal with this assault. They've used all of their AoE stuns only on a single target, so this is smart from Cassidy and Facile. They want to chase Chaz and race. They might just win the race. Darkness gets dropped. Life Cocoon has to be plopped out as well. Double blind onto both the Feral and the Hunter as Zuniaki looks to survive. This is what I was worried about for Chaz, was if it turns into a race, the Frost Death Knight is not scary unless there are multiple targets. And Chaz has to bring the Hunter and the Feral on top of Zuni and try and heal through it. That's going to be very difficult to do as a Mistweaver. Zuniaki ports nowhere. Big mistake here. He could cost him his life. He gets bursted down. He life cocoons at 10%, but now Chaz is interrupted. He paralyzes Cassidy. He tries to roll to safety. They're chasing after him. Chaz ports. Facile disengages. Cassidy goes into travel form, removes the snare, stuns Chaz up. He trinkets, but he's being blasted. Crackling Jade from Zuniaki, getting that mark of the crane on Chaz. Raikou is rooted up. Chaz is going to lose the race. This all backfired because he didn't pick Shaman, I swear. Picking Monk in this matchup, Jungle's going to win that race 100%. They do way more single target damage. Way more.
Welcome to the jungle. This is not what we expected to see at all before we got into the series, but by game 1, Enlight already starting to make believers out of everybody. Now we see game number 2. I mean, Zika, when you're looking at this series all in all, it seems like they should be able to steal another one at the very least. It looks like they might be able to take this. What would you do right now if you were Method? What would you try to bring? Do you switch your composition? Do you change your strategy? What on earth do you do in the face of this pressure from the jungle?
Classic Method Black. Go Rogue Mage Pally. I mean, that's what I thought that they would do this game. Yeah, I mean, this is the secret to Method Black. They will play the biggest counter, and they will play the other biggest counter that they have. And if both fail, they're going to play Rogue Mage Pally, play out of their minds, and then try to reverse sweep. So the next game, small map, Rogue Mage Pally, probably going to be the answer for Method Black. But yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I'm starting to put my faith in the light here.
You might be right. Your prediction, a quick 3-0. Just not.
Yeah, maybe you were right.
We thought.
Hey, what can I say? Drip, drip, the leaky faucet once again.
You know, eventually, the reason that you were named
fell in a glass.
Exactly. The reason the title "The Leaky Faucet" was given to you is because eventually, you will be able to fill up that prediction bucket. It just might take a while. But in this series, where do we expect to go as far as maps are concerned, Ben Ricky?
For Rogue Mage Paladin, where do they want to go? I would say potentially a smaller map, maybe something like Dalaran Sewers. I think it depends. It's going to be telling. If they go to a big map like Ashermane's Fall, I feel like they're going to try Mage Lock again. I would expect, I think at least, they want to have a map where it's not going to be too difficult for Chaz if he is playing Paladin to push in, land the Hammer of Justice. It looks like they have selected Tolvaron Arena, so I would not anticipate them playing anything but Mage Lock at this point. So I think that's kind of telling it where their head's at right now is they want to go back to Mage Lock, try to just have a big advantage on this map. But to me, it's like the fact that they didn't, do this kind of right away after losing the first game means they're not super confident in this matchup. Like if Mage Lock was kind of their bread and butter answer against the Mistweaver jungle, then I would have expected game number 2 to be Tolvaron Arena right away as Mage Lock to try to pick up that win. Don't really blame them for experimenting on the smaller map, but yeah, I'm worried for Method Black right now. I mean, nLite is definitely here to play today.
It is one of those things, though, too, where experimenting, even if it doesn't pay off immediately and you do drop down to the lower side of the bracket, figuring out how you do want to play against this composition might end up being something important. You have to keep that in mind. This one is not an elimination series, so if Method Black does drop down, this might end up being the composition that they do need to beat now, which I don't think we expected to see at all. I mean, I just remember so many series last weekend where you have fantastic jungles running into a complete roadblock. Whether or not that's going to change in this tournament is still to be seen. Our attention definitely on Dalaran here, and as we anticipate what Method Black is actually going to lock in. Sid, what do you want to see? We've already heard from everybody else. We haven't heard from you. Is there anything in particular that you're really waiting to see on
The
Dalaran?
map makes me think they're doing Mage Lock again, but maybe Fire. I think the Frosty Cave would have worked, but he needed to be a Resto Shaman. Then you don't get trained down and just die like that, as you do as the monk.
The problem is that it's Chaz Rest of Shaman.
It's Ghost Wolf, though.
Yeah, but
You don't think Chaz can handle Ghost Wolf?
I think that when someone is very inexperienced, even if the healer that we're talking about maybe isn't the most demanding, I think there's still ways to kind of make your team lose. I would practice it a little bit more before I brought it out in the tournament. Jazz is one of the GOATs, but, you know, I think it's smart to know your limit as well. Ali is insane, Mystery is insane, Priest is insane, Druid is insane. Stick to that.
How do you feel about Frost Mage being brought out again? I know that there were some talks about potentially switching to Fire. Zico, do you like Frost Mage here?
I don't want to judge it off of one game. I feel like we need a bigger sample size before we can really judge it. But I feel like running Fire with Greater Pyro and Firestarter, it's got to be the best in this matchup. Like, you get targeted, you just spam Combust, and you have a Destro Lock on your team. And if you don't get targeted, you have Greater Pyro. I feel like that's what I would do in this.
I think I just in general, I'm not sold on the Frostbolt build yet. I think in Dampening, just having every little bit of damage available to you is really, really important. And just the fact that Raikou is playing, you know, every single essence, gear option, trait, talent in order to make just Frostbolt do damage, I think you give up a lot. Like, you give up you know, potentially Reaping Flames, which is really, really good burst, Comet Storm, Ice Nova. I already mentioned I feel like Icy Veins is just super duper strong as an offensive cooldown, especially because they can't dispel it. Like, having that as basically your Berserker mode, I just think it's a lot to give up. And if your Frostbolt, you don't get the Frostbolts off, you're just going to end up doing nothing. So potentially I'd just like to see Raikou go to a more standard build, and I think it'll work out a lot better.
I mean, also, just to kind of talk about that build a little bit more before we see what he is bringing in this potentially last game in the series, how did the Vision of Perfection actually work out using that essence? Did he have a lot of uptime ultimately?
No, he's running it in minor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he was still running Conflict, but
that blew my mind. I thought that you guys said he was running as a major, and I was like, wow, that seems scary.
I think that's a little too
yeah, that would be YOLO.
I want to see Raikou actually go full out Gushing. I think if Raikou goes full Gushing and then he goes like Safeguard plus Battle Master, I think he's chilling.
Okay, well...
Wait, literally, because he's a Frost Mage?
Yeah, just with a standard like Frost build. Yeah, no, I really think so. Like, 2 ice blocks, I don't think they will force it. Especially not on this map.
Looks like we might have a little bit of a different build this time around, but we're going to see. The gates are now open, and Light leads by 2, and they look to close out the series here on Dalaran Arena.
All right, so he dropped the armor.
Yeah. No ice form.
Running that Kleptomania instead, looking to just strip off all the hots on a go. They're actually, they're playing Spite. Why, though? It's a Hunter. There's no way. Is it going to work? Spite against a Hunter? They have so much mobility. Almost all 3 players can instantly jump out of Spite. They don't have Ursul's Vortex or Death Grip. Is Method Black going to sheep into a Spite? Is that their plan? I mean,
not a bad plan. It's not a horrible plan. I mean, we'll see. It gives you an extra surprise factor in the matchup, right? Like, maybe they don't reveal the Spite till a little bit later on. They can catch their opponents off guard. I don't completely mind it. I think there's a lot of value in Spite. Here it is. Paralyze on Cassidy, into the Spite, into the Infernal Stuns, into the Mortal Coil, into the Leg Sweep, and Cassidy immediately has to Trinket. And it's those setups, those well-coordinated spite setups. I mean, Cassidy's already had to trade out his trinket. The next one's going to be absolutely devastating. Facile taking quite a bit of burst right now, and I just think the spites are just an extra win condition that Swapsy and Raikou have. They don't need it to win the game, but the fact that they can do those setups makes it even scarier for Facile and Cassidy.
I think it's great zone denial in general. Like if, because the jungle, at some point, they have to force the Life Cocoon and then try to stay in and try to push the Warlock over. And for that moment, it's going to be nice for them to just drop spites on top of Swapsy to kind of just use it as a zone denial. But the other thing is Raikou, since he isn't running the Frostbolt spam kind of build, he has a pet. He has that water elemental, and both Cassidy and Facile are running Reaping Flames, Breath of the Dying. If you kill a pet, like if you get it to 10-20%, and then you reap it and you execute it with that, you will get a massive buff on your next reaping. So potentially we could see that water elemental just go down right here maybe even, and then somebody is going to reap it, and then they're going to try to do a big double reaping dress the gap go, and that can be a complete like 80-0 in one, like half a second.
Right.
So there's a lot of damage here on the side.
Oh, Cassidy got out of the spites there.
No.
So he's fine. That spite is going to not be secured. Also, I think it was only 2 spites. I think one person is either choosing not to spite or just messing up. Because in that first attempt, it wasn't 3 spites either. I actually don't think Cassidy needed to trinket the first go because it wasn't 3 spites. Your corruption's not going to get stacked up too high. I mean, their game plan is to Kleptomania the Master's Call, the freedom effect, so that it doesn't continue to reduce the stacks of corruption, and then try and blow the Feral Druid up in a leg sweep. I'm just not sold on it being enough time in the spites. To get that 100 KO, it's probably more like 15 seconds minimum. You got to keep them in 3 of those purple circles. Polymorph onto Zuni and then spite him and keep him in the poly 3 times might work. So maybe they can do that later in the game if they can get Zuniaki to come out into midfield. Right now, though, when you're playing around spite, sometimes you get inside your head. You're like, oh, okay, when's our next spite? Can we go now? And then while you're trying to set up for winning, you just throw the game and die because you weren't focused on defense.
Oop.
Here comes another paralyzed leg sweep, triple spite. Master's Call dropped. He spell steals it instantly. This is the best spite we've seen so far. Nice Ring of Peace locked against the wall. Survival Instincts, Mortal Coil. This is beautiful from Swapsy. That's exactly what they needed. Can they power through Life Cocoon and kill is now the question. And if they can't, I mean, Life Cocoon will be up for every single spite.
Yeah, that was a really good attempt, though. They got the trinket from Cassidy there. Cassidy had to retreat out. That was the Dark Soul of Swapsy, though, so that's ideally when you want to be using your trinket. Still, they also forced out the Life Cocoon, so if Raikou can position a little bit more aggressively and try to sneak in a polymorph, it could be a big setup here on to Cassidy, but...
Yeah, I mean, it definitely could. Cassidy getting low. Big damage. You might just get taken down. Absolutely destroyed. Big damage from Swapsy and Raikou. Surprising kill. And I mean, that's what can happen. If you're playing to 50% dampening in these games, you can be caught off guard quite quickly from some big bursts from the opposition. I feel like Raikou, this Frost Mage build, looked significantly better. I think Method Black, they just had a better game, basically better gameplay, better strategy here. And I think that's a lot more what this matchup's supposed to look like.
Yeah, I okay, let's say that maybe is much more what it's going to look like, maybe what we're going to see in the future. Do you think that we can still see another game, Zico, that looks like what we saw in the first 2 games of this series, or do you think we slowly start to see Method crawl back into this one?
I think, well, the thing is, it's going to be interesting to see what Method decides to do here now when they are locking in blind, because, they've always had the counter pick, right? Now, I feel like they know that they're either going to face Priest jungle or Mistweaver jungle. That's really the only variety on the side of nLite. But with the map, for example, if nLite locks in, I don't know, Blackrock Hold, like they pretty much always do, I'm not sure if you want to be playing, Mage Lock Monk, at that point. Maybe you bring in Waz and you play Rogue Mage Pally. So I feel like there's a decent shot that we see Waz come in when they're blind. But if they play Mage Lock, I think on a smaller map, nLite could still easily sneak away with a win. And even against Rogue Mage Pally, it's kind of a skill matchup as well that anybody can take. So to answer your question, yes, I think nLite could definitely...
Well, they just put themselves so far ahead at this point. I mean, we've seen Method Black. I feel like at this point in the tournament, in particular, we've seen them crawl back and get these reverse sweeps, somewhat start off with a little bit of a slower start, and then they crawl back, and then by the end of the tournament, they're able to take the entire thing down. But this seems like one of those matchups where it will be very hard to see a timeline where Enlight's not able to steal just one more of them. And as you mentioned, the dynamic is completely shifting in this series now, because this is the first time that Method Black is not going to have full information, and they are going to be doing everything on the blind. This is the first time that they have been able to win a game thus far. What do you expect Enlight to do with that boon now, Super Tees? What maps do you think they're going to try to set up for?
They like Blackrock Hold. Enlight, they always go Blackrock Hold, but if it ends up that they want to avoid the Frosty K Mistweaver, I wonder if they don't do that, because then Chaz will be able to utilize the map for himself. They could just go Tiger's Peak, maybe something middle ground, but they tend to go to the Blackrock Hold. I wouldn't mind seeing, I don't know why my brain is thinking like Blade's Edge, but I just feel like with Knockback Trap, like they could do some good plays on Blade's Edge Arena. Maybe they're worried about the crowd control too much. They don't have a lot of time to lock in here. I'm just watching the draft live. Dalaran, okay, it's just middle centered, decent cleave map. And then Method Black have to decide, is Spite gonna work on a small map? It could. Or do they do the Frosty K strategy again, but with a different healer that can't so easily be tunneled?
Okay, yeah, I am very curious to see what we do actually see here. Going into this one, I'm already starting to, I'm getting carried away, trying to think what would actually happen if nLite was able to take it, how it would affect the bracket. But as you did say, Dalaran Sewers is going to be the map, and right now it's all on Method Black. I think we can pretty much expect what nLite's going to be locking in here. It's on the composition that Method Black does lock in. Venruki, what do you think they're going to bring on this smaller map?
I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, on Dalaran Sewers, I feel like there's actually the potential for Zuniaki to play the Priest. Like, I think on the smaller map,
wow,
the Priest could end up working out. I mean, the Mystery Monk has looked great so far. Obviously, you can bring them really, really late into the game, but you have a lot more offensive capability with the Discipline Priest, and it could potentially throw Method Black a bit of a curveball here in game number 3 if they decide, to do anything too cheeky. So definitely interested to see what Method Black decides to do. It seems like at this point the Mage Warlock really is their best option, but maybe they might be a little bit reluctant here on the smaller map.
All right, we're going to be finding out very shortly. As you can see, that clock is dwindling down. They're not going to have too much time here left to play around with before they need to lock it in and ship it. Enlight having all of the cards in their hand right now. They set up for this game. They want to close out that series and move on forward before we do get into those elimination series today. And we are going to see on the small map Frost Mage and Swapsy on the Destro Warlock. Zico, how do you feel about this selection here on Dalaran?
I mean, compositionally, they have the edge, right? But I feel like on Dalaran, it's going to be tricky, and they're going to have to perform really well. I mean, C9, for example, if it was C9, I would just say, yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter. They play, Mage Lock so well that they're probably going to win regardless. But with Method, we've seen them. I mean, they lost on Nagrand, right? Sure, they did some, talent and trinket adaptations, but I feel like also more than in any other game, nLite really dropped the ball too in that last game on Tolveron. So I don't know. I think nLite could still win this.
Wait, would you agree, Sid? Do you think on the last on Tolveron, nLite did drop the ball?
Yeah. I mean, they overlapped Lingering Psychic Shell, Life Cocoon, and Survival Instincts at the same time.
And Trinket too.
And then they ran out in the middle of the map after using every cooldown, and then they died to Dark Soul. So they kind of fed. If they had just waited, they wanted to go while Spite was on cooldown, but I think they forgot there's a Destro lock. And Spite is a threat,
happens,
and so is the Destro lock.
They got the kill with just a paralyze as well on the heal. Like, Zuni was so out of position. I don't know if he got counterspelled or if he was completely out of position there, but he got paralyzed like as Cassidy died too. So it's like they pretty much killed him with.
That's kind of what I was mentioning though. Like the Spite, the reason why I like it so much is because you can make the team overreact. Like, you can just use the 3 spites with your crowd control, and then, you know, you're getting all these defensive cooldowns, they're rotating through. Then maybe they feel safe, push in without the spite trinket. I mean, that's what happens a lot of the times against, you know, when you're playing against a rogue mage that's kind of spite all-inning you. When there's spites on cooldown, you feel very confident to push in, but it's a little bit different with the mage warlock because it's still a Destro warlock and it's still a mage. They can get that crowd control, they can have that burst damage, and I think you can kind of catch your opponent off guard, give them kind of a false sense of security when spite's on cooldown. But in Method Black, they were able to punish, capitalize on the mistakes, and it does look like nLite will be locking in the Mistweaver jungle as well. So same matchup, just a smaller map.
Yeah, exactly what it is. I do want to bring up, though, before we actually get to jump into that map, I know that there were some whispers about whether or not a priest could work on a map like this. Why do you think Zuniaki Zico decided to stick with this Mistweaver?
Well, the way they won was with Dampening, right? When they won on Nagram in this matchup. And I feel like if Zuni plays Priest, then they have to play to win and have to land a kill on either Raikou or Swapsy before Zuni's bar goes to 0. I feel like they're just giving away a little bit of a too easy win condition to Method Black. And the other thing about Priest is that you don't really have a great way of, you know, not being snared. Like, if you're a monk and a frost mage drops a blizzard on top of you, you can just roll and that's it, right? But if you're a priest, you're forced to like waddle out of it, right? And then if you get stunned on the way or Ring of Peace, like slows are just way more annoying on a priest because you don't have that mobility. In addition to the mana, and in addition to kind of playing the opposite of how they want to be playing this matchup right now.
All right, well, we're going to jump into this one. Keep in mind, after this, it's all elimination series. This is going to set up the rest of the day. Enlight wants to make sure that they stay on the top side of the bracket. Method Black could be knocked down here on Dalaran Sewers.
All right, Enlight, will they be able to take down Cup 1 champions Method Black on that Mage Lock Mistweaver, a composition that has been terrorizing the meta for this entire patch, basically. They've adopted the Mistweaver themselves onto their roster to try and counteract. Raikou stunned up initially out in midfield, going to blink back to his team. Facile chasing, Cassidy looking to connect as well out of the fear, but now he's paralyzed. Here comes the 3 Gladiator Spites into leg sweep. Infernal stun, baiting a trinket, no bait. He jumps with Wild Charge, beautiful Wild Charge there. And a trap on Chaz to deny the Ring of Peace. With Life Cocoon active and that nice maneuvering, I mean, Cassidy should be all right. He's pushing in still, though, quite aggressive. Gets knocked off the side. He's very far out of position. Again, might be forgetting. It's a Destro Warlock. Dark Soul popped. 1 Chaos Bolt. Second one gets interrupted. Cassidy ducks around the corner with that lingering Psychic Shell. Now should be all right, but a sudden swap of damage flooding onto Facile. He disengages back to the boxes. Catches some heals, and looks like he'll be all right. Now, these Spites have definitely got the fear of death back into Enlight, and with that fear of death, will Enlight be able to push through?
So what Zuni actually did there, so what Method Black wants to do is they want to paralyze Cassidy and then stun him. And in the paralyze, that's when they drop the Spites and the Ring of Peace and everything. And what Zuni wants to do every time this happens is paralyze Chaz to prevent the stun from going off. So you guys gotta have to keep an eye open for whenever Cassidy gets paralyzed. Look at Chaz right now. He's gonna get paralyzed to right. No, he did it on Raikou actually instead. That's because Chaz didn't have his leg sweep quite yet there. So a little bit of a mix up there from Zuni, but he needs to do a counter paralyze every single time like that. Otherwise, the Cassidy is going to be in big trouble.
I wonder what actually happened during that go. I mean, that was a bit sloppy from Method Black. Really just need to see if they're going to play the Spites, you have to execute it basically perfectly. And using your paralyze before leg sweep is available, definitely a little bit unfortunate there for Method Black, but as we saw in the last game, it's not an absolute necessity for them to win. There is a Destro Warlock in the game. If he gets off too many Chaos Bolts, the game could just outright be over. Cassidy's going after Raikou right now, trying to generate a little bit of pressure, but at this point in the game, no one's really been too afraid. Mostly everyone has their defensive cooldowns available, ready to go. I'd say Cassidy is the only one that's a little bit behind, but Zuniaki, more than enough tools to keep him alive. I'll have to see if Chaz, Raikou, and Swapsy can set up with that Gladiator Spite once again, but Cassidy with his trinket rotating back up, he's going to be feeling relatively safe.
Ooh, just a gas spine. Life Cocoon going to trade for that. They knock Swapsy. They try and get him off the staircase, but Ring of Peace is slightly off center. Swapsy not going to be knocked out of line. Zuniaki's now in a full poly. They're spiting Zuniaki. He's playing relentless. They Master's Call. They spell steal it. Nice freezing trap on Chaz to stop the leg sweep. Beautiful interception by Facile. That entire setup gets totally shut down by the Hunter. Beautiful play.
That is so nice. And this is exactly what we got to be keeping an eye open. If they're going for Cassidy, you're going to have to watch Facile and Zuni try to shut down Chaz from accessing that leg sweep. It is the only undispellable stun on the side of Method Black, and that is what they're playing around. And on the flip side, if they're going for Zuni like that, then Facile needs to try to shut down the stun by stunning Chaz with his stun on his pet, or potentially trapping Chaz like he just did there. So nLite are definitely just playing really well, heads up, before they're actually in deep trouble, and that has netted them, you know, the fact that Cassidy still has all of his defense, Dark Soul is down, and now they can look to get aggressive here, Ben.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be looking to push forward and keep up that momentum. About a minute away from Dampening right now. Raikou getting interrupted, but there's just not too much burst to follow it up. Zuniaki now caught into a Seduce. The triple spite coming in once again. Raikou manages to find the polymorph. Can Chaz get there? No, he's crowd controlled, unfortunately. Doesn't look like they're going to be able to get too much value. Raikou trying to keep him there with Pet Nova, with his Ice Nova. Finally, the leg sweep coming in. And now Zuniaki could be in a little bit of trouble. But with the Fortifying Brew, it's looking like he's going to be A-OK. Raikou trying to do some damage with the Ray of Frost, but unfortunately just not finding too much. 2 Chaos Bolts land. Zuniaki responds with the Life Cocoon. Now, I mean, it's a fair trade for Zuniaki. He did, although disuse his cloak. I feel like that might have been an overreaction. So the 3-minute on use from his cloak to free him from any corruption damage. That being said, I feel like he was pretty safe, and now he's very susceptible to a Spite All In the future.
Facile may just be going down. Once again, there's a Duster Lock in the game. You're playing out in midfield. Facile going to line of sight on the bottom side, but Zuniaki is currently polymorph. Chaz is trying to drink, I think. Nope, not able to in this position. Doesn't want to risk it. Facile gets blasted. Still utilizing that Z-axis line of sight to try and hold out while Zuniaki's polyed. That Vitality Conduit buys him time to recover. Succubus currently whipping away at Zuniaki, waiting for that Seduce diminishing return before engaging crowd control. Facile currently with no exhilaration. Potentially they set up onto the Hunter. Chaz rolls in. There's the Seduce on his Zuniaki. Facile instantly disengages away from any potential stun. He avoids it. Now can he support Cassidy? He traps Chaz, but Cassidy is still locked down in the spites. He skull bashes to Swapsy to get out of it. Line of sighting him now at the staircase. Zuniaki's still playing at the boxes to avoid being polymorphed. There is a counterspell from Raikou available, but he would have to blink forward to get it. Might be too risky for him to do it, so Zuniaki should be able to stabilize here as Cassidy line of sights with the wall. Raikou can only attack Facile. Zuniaki still in a good position. Decent mana, but another Seduce. No one's in position to stop the Seduce. Cassidy going to activate the Lingering Psychic Shell that trades well with the Dark Soul, but it was overlapped with a stun. Would have maybe perhaps liked to see Cassidy displace those cooldowns. Now he's feared out in the open. Chaos Bolts are flying. One connects. Cassidy just jumping and taking to the face and jumps right into the fight anyway. Zuniaki trying to pick him up. Chaz drank during that push to tie the mana up. That's definitely going to be a problem, but I would say that nLite still have potential, and the Method Black are on match point.
I think nLite right now are in a great position. They haven't really, had to use any massive defensives here, and, Dimni's mana is looking good. All they need to do is live long enough to where they can just run over Swapsy on that Warlock or run over Raikou on that Mage. Ooh, big attempt here. Let's see, where is the stun onto Chaz? Chaz actually does get the leg sweep off, but a nice Life Cocoon there by Zuni should keep Cassidy going. Cassidy gonna use his Skull Bash, his interrupt right there, just to get out of that spite as quickly as he can, and he should be fine. He doesn't have any survival instincts though. He needs to be a little bit careful, but nice preemptive Vitality Conduit from Zuniaki before the crowd control chain lands is going to keep Cassidy safe, and Facile is just going to make sure that he's at the pillar so that the wizard can't be casting on him. And now Facile actually activating his damage cooldowns, looking to get aggressive. Raikou trying to slow him down. Nice fear by Swapsy. So far Facile not able to do anything. Preemptive counterspell there from Raikou as well. Now Facile finally going to be able to do some damage, and his cooldowns are about to run up, so this didn't generate any pressure whatsoever. In fact, Chaz was trying to get a drink right there. Zuni and Apolly, do they have something for Chaz though? Doesn't look like it. Instead, they're just going to try to brute force it here on Swapsy, but I think the Chaz is going to have no problem scaling this through, and another spite attempt could be coming up right here, Rookie.
Definitely could. Paralyze into leg sweep. Cassidy, a lot of spite, and you can see he's actually getting some damage. The things from beyond are spawning onto Cassidy. He's going to shred through that life cocoon. He preemptively activates the survival instincts once again, soaking up a second thing from beyond, but get these cooldowns out of the way. Now there's an opportunity where Swapsy, he uses the Dark Soul, he uses the Infernals, and it really creates the situation where the defensive cooldowns of Enlight are desynced with the offensive cooldowns of Swapsy and Raikou. So Spite Trinkets, great for creating these opportunities here for the Jungle Cleave. Cassidy's taking a big hit of damage, but Zuniaki topping him off before getting interrupted. Nice interrupt there by Raikou, unfortunately not going to net and really too much damage. Cassidy is out of line of sight. Facile right now using that lingering Psychic Shell to avoid damage as well, giving Zuniaki kind of a moment to breathe and catch up his team.
Raikou, Temporal Shields. His healer is not looking good on mana. This next Dark Soul from Swapsy needs to pay out, really. Basically, even just win the game if it keeps up at this pace. Chaz is now fully trapped. This could be devastating. Berserk popped. Cassidy's ripping in. Swapsy swaps pets over to that imp. Dispels the freezing trap. Clutch play, but there's the paralyze. Here come the spites. They're going to Master's Call. They need to instantly spell steal the Master's Call. Chaos Bolts are flying in. They pre-life cocoon, but he gets Ring of Peace back into the corruption. Frost Nova'd in the corruption. Shadow Fury, but he was able to Skull Bash. Life cocoon has been busted. Cassidy needs to run for his life here. Stay at the box and wait. He's choosing not to wait too long. Perhaps his corruption has fallen off a bit. Vitality Conduit, while Facile is Polymorph. Good value there, as the Polymorph will heal the Hunter back to full while switching the health to Cassidy for free. Freezing Trap on Chaz. Swapsy gets stunned on his Dark Soul. This is devastating for Swapsy. He's not getting any pressure out. He might just die during his own Dark Soul. It's match point. An ending resolve now forced as well. Swapsy trying to counter pressure them back. Cassidy going to jump off the side, and this map is definitely paying off. But during that push with the Spite, Chaz found a drink and got a mana advantage.
I really feel like the mana bar of Chaz, it's not that relevant. I think the most relevant thing is Zuni's mana bar, because he's never going to be able to drink. And as long as he has some mana to allow them to get to 40-50% dampening, it should be enough here to land a kill. And now they're doing a big setup here. Do they have any follow-up CC here? Maybe a stun, maybe a DR paralyze. Not able to find it. Chaz activating that Life Cocoon, but Life Cocoon at this point in dampening, not going to be too big of a shield. Swapsy has no defense. The next time the trap comes out, Swapsy is going to be in massive trouble. And I think he still has a Succubus out here, but Cassidy gets caught. I think he should Trinket out of this one, and he does. Trinket, no survival instincts though, could still be in trouble. Big Mortal Coil coming out. He's going to retreat a little bit here, but he needs to get aggressive ASAP. There's no Life Cocoon. There is nothing here for Swapsy, only that Vitality Conduit. If they can land one trap, that could be the game here for nLite, sending Method Black down to the lower bracket.
Yeah, Vasile though under fire just a little bit. Cassidy moving in and out of line of sight, trying to avoid damage as much as he possibly can at this moment of the game. 36% dampening. This is where mistakes can cost you huge. Swapsy getting low. Big heals. Chaz now into a trap. Swapsy's in so much trouble. One dress to Gath lands. Is it going to be a second? Swapsy, can you survive? He gates away. Chaz just needs a moment to get the Life Cocoon, and he does. A full shield to keep Swapsy alive and in the fight. And now Method Black, they're going to have to try to reverse this pressure.
Cassidy going to jump off the side, get back to the boxes. They're waiting for Life Cocoon. Mana has evened out between the teams. Zuniaki repositioning away from the Succubus, but gets caught in the Seduce regardless. Here come the Spites. Cassidy has no way to get out of the stun lock. If they keep Cassidy in the Spite, it's lights out for Cassidy. We're going to game 5. He's Ring of Peace in the wall. He can't escape. Barely getting around the corner, but his corruption is easily maxed out right now. Survival Instincts needs to be enough. Zuniaki is powering through it with the Vitality Conduit. Will Swapsy crack through, looking for Fear onto Facile. No Chaos Bolts, though, surprisingly. No Chaos Bolts whatsoever with the increased damage taken. Swapsy now stunned up. Chaz is powering heals in here. Zuniaki moves on top of his team to try and get some help with this Succubus, but no one's able to stop it. Thing from Beyond connects onto Cassidy. Full Polymorph now out of the Seduce. Perhaps a mismanagement of positioning here from Zuniaki. He's caught in quite a lot of crowd control. They decide to drop the Frozen Orb and break the Polymorph, though. Maybe they're trying to set up Chaz for a drink. He drops that Life Cocoon. Zuniaki holds on, trying to push this to match point, or game 5, and just take it all. Chaz stunned up. He's not able to drink. Is Swapsy going to go down? Is Facile going to go down? Facile feigned death. Dress and Gas are connecting. Huge pressure onto Swapsy now. Almost 50% dampening. Cassidy jumps into the fight. They're trying to kill the Warlock before the Gladiator Spites are available. Will they be able to kill him in time? He is very low at this point. Chaz rolls up. Cassidy ducks for cover. Shadow Meld re-stealth. Gets found in stealth with the Pet Nova. They drop the spites, but Chaz is stunned. Infernal might buy him a second for the leg sweep. Shadow Fury, they need to keep Cassidy as long as possible in the spite. They drop one on his escape path. They ring a piece him, but he's been able to escape. They interrupt Swapsy during the Dark Soul. All of Method Black are very low on health. They didn't over-corrupt Cassidy. This game is swinging out of control for Method Black.
I mean, let's see what happens. Swapsy's down to 50% health. He's getting lower. Not any resolve is available, but he can't wait too long. Chaz, he's got no mana. It's 50% dampening. This might be unrecoverable here for Method Black. Things are looking good for nLite. Can Method Black reverse the pressure? Nice counterspell snuck in by Raikou. But Chaz, he's in a full trap. It does get dispelled off or broken. Swapsy just not going up in health. He has to hold on, and here it is, the Unending Resolve looking for Chaos Bolts. Facile out of line of sight is going to be avoiding all that damage. Cassidy pushing in, getting the damage rolling on Swapsy. Can he survive? Aspect of the Eagle for Facile, and Swapsy falls. Method Black going down to the lower bracket. nLite advances with a beautiful jungle gameplay.
Man, you look at last weekend, there was an upset. It was with Wildcard Gaming. It showed just how crazy the competition was. Same thing going to happen here, but this is just showing so much more. It's showing Enlight, a team that